much for being here. We really appreciate it. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. Just to set some context and the goals of this session, I'm going to try not to talk for too long, I promise. We embarked on the small school study for a very specific student-focused reason. We want to ensure that students in the small schools were receiving similar academic and social opportunities as their peers in the larger elementary schools. Subordinate to that was a due diligence effort to ensure that the board is being prudent in spending and allocating taxpayer dollars. Folks, the board included, love their small schools. The communities have certainly spoken. Small class sizes, specifically in Salisbury, led to some proposed resolution combining SES grade levels and a planned SES-WES grade level combination. These potential options were not met with parental support. As a result, the board impaneled the New Hampshire School Administrators Association to conduct an objective, third-party, small school study with the goal of providing the board with some options to consider in meeting the goals that I mentioned earlier. Our goals tonight include gaining feedback from you based on the options that the New Hampshire School Boards Association has identified, soliciting volunteers to help get into the weeds to bring some applicable thoughts for continued improvements at our small schools based on whatever path we choose. It should be noted, this study and these feedback sessions are not coming from any sort of deficit situation. Webster and Salisbury are both great schools filled with skilled and caring adults. We just want to rally around the concept of small class sizes and make them better. Suggestions for continued improvement brought forth at these sessions may be applicable and appropriate to all Merrimack Valley School District schools. Couple of ground rules. As always, we'll be respectful and civil. This session is focused on hearing from our communities about the small schools. It is not a session to hear about specific student matters. In general terms, examples of academic and social interactions will be discussed. However, no specific students will be included in this discussion. Please identify yourself and your town when you provide feedback. Before we open the floor up for discussion, Mark is going to give us an overview of the report, and then Randy's going to talk a little bit about academic and social learning overview in terms of class size and whether it matters. And then we'll open it up. Mark?
Thank you, Celia. For anybody who was at the board meeting or listened to the board meeting last time, some of this is going to be reviewed, so I'll apologize in advance. But the complete report, we have a copy right there. I'll have Celia hold it up. The Van and White.
Very fancy, yeah. Colors and all.
The complete reports have been delivered, and a PDF version of the report is uploaded to the MVSD website under the Small Schools page. It's about a 90-page report, complete with colored graphics and tables and some of the information that has been used throughout this conversation and that the NHSAA used when they hosted a session in June. So I'm just going to briefly go through the report just to set the stage and provide the folks here tonight with some information and context as to what was presented to the board and to help frame out any further conversation that we have here this evening. So the first part of the report is an overview of the Merrimack Valley School Board's goals and the expressed reasons why the board contracted with the NHSAA to perform the study. There's information about the two investigators, Dr. Carl Ladd and Mr. Keith Burke, and the New Hampshire School Administrators Association organization. There's also information about the NHSAA processes and the expected time frame for the study. The report then provides town profiles and demographic information for both Salisbury and Webster. And I'm going to go off script just a little bit. There were some kind of interesting facts that'll be interesting, and folks here tonight are 100% aware of it. I'll go Salisbury first. Salisbury was originally called Bakerstown and was renamed Stevenstown. It was incorporated by the New Hampshire government in 1768 as Salisbury. Salisbury, and Salisbury Elementary School within Salisbury, the report includes enrollment and overall population information. In 2012, the SES enrollment as a percentage of the town population was 5.88%. For context, in 2019, the SES enrollment, Salisbury Elementary School enrollment, as a percentage of the town population is 4.08%. What is true is that while the population in Salisbury is slowly climbing, the school-age population is declining in comparison. Births in Salisbury have remained mostly steady since 2012. Building permits in Salisbury have declined since the early 2000s. Within the study, there was a high of 12 single-family permits in 2005. 2019 saw 7 single-family building permits. There are signs, however, of increased residential development in Salisbury, and some folks here tonight are probably well aware of that. Some interesting facts about Webster. Webster was originally part of Boscawen. In 1791, residents of the western part of Boscawen petitioned for separation into a town to be named Bristol. The separation finally occurred in 1860. A new town was incorporated as Webster in honor of Daniel Webster. The Webster Elementary School and Webster enrollment and overall population are also included in the report. And similarly, as I heard about in Salisbury, in 2012, the Webster Elementary School enrollment as a percentage of the town population was 5.77%. In 2019, that percentage is 4.45%. Again, while the population of Webster is slowly climbing, the school-age population is declining in comparison. Births in Webster have fluctuated a bit more in comparison to Salisbury. There was a high within the study of 84 new births in 2009. Since 2015, new births have been in the range of the 60s. There have been there have been very few building permits in Webster since 2009, ranging between 0 in some years and 6 in other years. For further context, in 2019, there were 4 new building permits for single-family residents. The next part of the report focuses on New Hampshire demographics. And essentially, Salisbury and Webster are microcosms of what's happening in most of the state. Overall, New Hampshire's population is slightly increasing. However, the state is getting older. The next part of the report details the rationale behind the enrollment projections and the algorithms that the two lead investigators used. Essentially looking at building permits, births, and historical population trends to make their predictions as to what was going to happen with enrollments and populations in both Webster and Salisbury. The report then includes descriptions of both Salisbury Elementary School and Webster Elementary School. These descriptions include academic programs, perceived strengths and limitations of each facility, and a look at the functional capacity at each building. Each building has a current estimated functional capacity of about 145 students. The report also alludes to the June 2021 listening session where a SCOT, a Strengths, Challenges, Opportunities, and Threats analysis, and hopes and aspirations occurred at that meeting. These were discussed. Dr. Ladd and Mr. Burke identified the passion each community has for their local schools within this report as well. Within the report also, Dr. Ladd and Mr. Burke expressed the need to have learning spaces that are both community-friendly, future-ready, adaptable, and able to deliver a 21st century learning. Within the report, there are options for the board to consider. The first option is to reaffirm MBSD's class size goals and continue with the current setup. Option number 2, as presented, was to close Salisbury Elementary School, send Salisbury Elementary School students to their other elementary schools through an open enrollment option, or consolidate Salisbury Elementary School with Webster Elementary School and combine the schools at Webster Elementary School. Option 3 was to close Webster Elementary School. Within that option, you had the ability, or a suggestion, not a suggestion, an option to consider, to send Webster Elementary students to other elementary schools through an open enrollment option, or to consolidate Webster Elementary with Salisbury Elementary and combine the schools at Salisbury Elementary School. Option 4 was to potentially add a preschool offering and consolidate into grade-specific configurations at each building. For example, Salisbury Elementary could house pre-K through 2, whereas Webster Elementary could host grades 3 through 5. Option 5 in the report outlines or identifies closing both Salisbury Elementary and Webster Elementary and consolidating students into the district's other elementary schools, Boscawen Elementary, Loudon Elementary, and Pennacook Elementary through an open enrollment option. Within the report, advantages and disadvantages for each of these options were outlined. At a recent school board meeting, there was a motion that was voted on and approved by the school board to essentially remove options 2, 3, and 5, any closing of the elementary schools from further discussion, and to focus on either option 1 or 4, and to move forward to gain community feedback on those particular options. So essentially this evening, we're looking at option 1, which is to reaffirm MBSD's class size goals and continue with the current setup, and to discuss what continued improvements would look like at both of these smaller elementary schools. And option 4 is to think about the grade-specific configurations at each building and what that could look like. Again, there are advantages and disadvantages of each of these options, and they are outlined in the report. There is also an appendix in the report which shows projections, enrollments at Salisbury Elementary and Webster Elementary, and these are actually projected to remain relatively stable for the next 10 years. Births are expected to remain stable as well. Predictions in very small towns are subject to more volatility, but neither Dr. Ladd or Mr. Burke saw anything that makes them feel enrollments will change that much. So essentially, I boiled it's a 90-page report as you see it there, but the font is pretty large and there's lots of pictures, to about a page and a half. So what the board is hoping for this evening is to gain feedback from the community, as they had stated they were going to throughout this process, to see if we can begin the conversation about really the two options that are on the table this evening, and that is to maintain the current setups of grades K through 5 in both of the small elementary schools, and to discuss what could be done to continue improvement within those small elementary schools, and or to discuss some different grade configurations at each school and what the advantages and disadvantages of that may be. While we won't uncover all of those advantages and disadvantages here this evening, one of the things that we'd also like to see happen as a result of these small school listening sessions is to impanel a group of folks from the community who are willing to sit down and get a little deeper into the weeds so that we can conceptualize and memorialize and really have some detailed conversation about what these particular advantages and disadvantages and further improvements could look like.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the mic over to Randy for a minute to talk about the question, does class size matter?
So
Switch to the bottom.
bit up. There we go. Hello. Thank you. So when we start talking about class sizes, if you read studies or you start, doing some research on class size, you're going to find that it's really a moot point for what we're talking about, because those studies that are talking about class size are generally talking about, they consider a small class to be a class of 17, and larger class to be 23, and a big class to be 30. So when they do any sort of breakdown and looking at class sizes, those are really the numbers, and all of our class sizes are under that 17 number. So it's really not, you can't just jump into the research and say big class, small class. But I'll still talk about some of the benefits just very quickly of both groups. Having been in the classroom and have had very large classes and also had very small ones, there is a sweet spot, but that would be my personal opinion. But you can have a class that's too small, for sure. So some of the benefits of a larger class, and get some of those bigger numbers, you have more ideas and more insights to draw from, like we're hoping to do tonight with this group. You have less of a problem with cliques, because you don't get these are the 3 people out of these 9 that are linked together. Better social opportunities in larger classes, and more opportunities to arrange groups for various purposes. So whatever the subject, whatever the approach, you have more flexibility with the grouping. Some of the benefits of smaller class sizes, you have more opportunities to participate. You have more opportunities for feedback, more one-to-one with the teacher. Students might be more likely to share ideas in that small group, and it's more difficult for a student to hide when you have a real small group. So those are just a couple of the things, and obviously that's more of anecdotal stuff. Those aren't just from me, that's from a large, when folks undertake these studies, as I pointed out, there's no appreciable difference in student achievement that they found in the small and the large class sizes. But but that's only academic achievement. That we could talk, we have some teachers in the room right now that could talk to, the social implications of some of those different sizes. But I think for the classes that we're looking at, when you hear about big class sizes, we're not going to be sort of in that range. So a lot of those get set aside.
Great, thank you very much. So now we're going to open the floor for feedback. Randy's going to take notes on what is said. And I'd like to talk about one option, go all the way through one, and then talk about the other. So the first one is to keep the current class sizes and set up as K-5 at both Webster and Salisbury. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts? What do you think the advantages are? What are the challenges? And what kind of continued improvement should we be considering? The floor is yours. I'm not sure we're taping. Do you want to do something different with the camera, or
Bring a mic over.
do you need a mic to have it, or
I don't think so. I think we're good.
well, I don't know whether the whatever is going to pick you up if you're not on a mic.
But I'll just move the mic that's on the table, and then it should pick stuff up fairly well from everybody else.
Bruce Johnson, Webster. First of all, I'd like to thank our superintendents who are here tonight and our school board members that are here tonight. I'd also like to thank all the school board members for voting for the motion to remove the closing of the school from consideration. That certainly alleviates a lot of the tears and fears. We had over 50 people here this summer because that's what this major concern was about. probably don't have those people here tonight because they are now feeling a lot more comfortable and they're supported by the school board. As I see it, we are now moving from the possibility of closing a school to strengthening the schools. I encourage the school board to move towards the option which is to keep the present configurations and to make improvements. This too meets the spirit of the charter, that all towns maintain their own elementary school. That means a similar elementary school to the other towns. That means K to 5. That does not mean a combined 3 to 5 elementary school and sending our kindergartners to another town. There are more problems for Webster with a combined K to 2, 3 to 5 than there are answers. 1. A combined K to 2 in Salisbury means that Webster parents will still be sending their children to another school in another town. Parents can speak up tonight, but really if I were one of those parents, I would not want that, particularly with a 5 or 6-year-old. 2. If a K2 and a 3-5 Webster children go to Salisbury, will you also include the cost of a resource officer for Salisbury?
So Bruce, sorry, but that's really the second option, the combining. Right now, we.
No, I don't want to combine. I'm talking against combining.
No, so just for the sake of the notes, you want us to talk about option 1 first, and then when we get to option 2, which would be.
Oh, so I get to say all the negatives. Nice.
Say why you don't, say, plus your advantages and challenges to keeping the current setup of K to 5 in both towns.
Okay. It's clear that small schools work. Webster is a successful school. It has higher than average test scores and lower than average cost per student. We should celebrate that. Let's celebrate that every teacher knows every child. Most every child knows every other child. Older children check on their younger siblings. A brother or sister walking off the school bus hand in hand is priceless. Let's celebrate that and let's work with that. There is something that's probably not going to be on either one of these two pieces of agenda that you asked for, Celia. I do want to speak about this. In addition, I would like to ask the school board, how many times are we going to hear that the Webster Elementary School doesn't have enough land? This is not really a problem, but we keep hearing this every now and then from the school board. Can the school board meet then with the Webster Select Board and purchase some land? There's a soccer field that can be purchased, or the land behind the soccer field, or the baseball field, or a park with river frontage. No other school in the district has that. Even a salt shed property will be available in a few years. Either purchase some property or just be thankful that the town owns a budding property that the school can use for free, and it does. I would like to add then, I don't know if this goes to the K1-2 or the 3-4-5, but I would like to say in addition that I especially like the pre-K program, that idea that has been come up. There is space at the Webster Elementary School for that now. Merrimack Valley School District was the leader in the Concord area in kindergarten, and we can also be the leader of pre-K. So thank you, Celia, and I will speak up again about the K1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, sir.
Roy Fanjoy, Webster. I don't have any children in the school system anymore. My 3 boys all graduated. I would like to personally see keeping the kindergarten through the 5th grade here in the town of Webster. I've done a little research. We do have a police department here, and most of the mornings, a police officer is there on 127 when the children are coming to school. Okay, disadvantage in Salisbury, they don't have that. In Webster, we have Hopkinton Ambulance. We pay for them to come, and they're very good here in town. But also, we have a fire department. Now, I have records from January 1st to September 20th. Webster had 165 runs, medical, everything. Out of that number of incidents, they did not respond to 13.9, okay? So we do have an active fire department here, EMS squad, whereas Salisbury does not. If you like the statistic for Salisbury, I could give you that one. But I think our children should stay here in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, David Smith, Webster. I'm a retired teacher and former colleague of Mr. McLean. We worked together at Albert High School back when we were packed to the gills. So it's so nice to be able to talk about a small school that everybody is in favor of. I would also like to strongly support the first option. And one major reason, besides the ones that Mr. Fanjoy and Bruce mentioned here, is the spirit of the town. There really is very little of Webster. If you've driven through here, you won't see any stoplights, you won't see any convenience stores, you won't see anything much besides the town buildings. We sacrificed that all for the greater benefit of the Merrimack Valley when the Army Corps of Engineers built the dam back in the 40s. We do have our school. Our school helps give us an identity, and it's great for our kids to be able to go to school from kindergarten right through grade 5 with other kids in Webster. It gives a place for parents to congregate, to watch soccer games, watch basketball games, PTOs, various things along that idea. I think that is something this town desperately needs to kind of keep us together as a community. The infrastructure, obviously, that was mentioned in police, ambulance, fire support, which is all right here shared with Hopkinton. And having available space. If the building is designed for 125 spaces, I believe, and we have about half that many kids, what a great opportunity for us to have various programs for kids to do. One of the things we always talked about at Alvin was we had all this time for lunches, and kids wanted to do stuff, but we didn't have any rooms that were available. Every room was packed with classes. Other schools with smaller enrollments were able to use those rooms for various clubs, organizations, and things to do during the school day, which meant a lot easier of things than necessarily being after school. That's a great opportunity, and we have people in town who'd be willing to participate in that sort of an idea. So again, those are 3 reasons amongst the other reasons given. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Nick Campo from Webster. I too want to support the number 1 proposal. I think it's important that, like, reiterate what people have said. I think it's very important to have, people in their town. It's a small town. That's what we got. That's the spot to meet the parents. That's the spot, kids will remember. Particularly here, anyway, in Webster, I think the class size is right. A few years ago, my daughter came through that school, and she met some great friends, great people, had an awesome experience. That being said, going forward, I know there's some questions about, specifically Salisbury, and their enrollment, and what can be done along that. Now, is there any chance of bringing in other towns, like on the border, or some families, maybe they drive through that way to get to work, or, because you're not looking for like 50 kids, you're looking for a few from each grade, ideally, I would think. So that would be a thought I had for, potentially bringing a few more students to that school. And then again, future, I know we talked about building permits, things like that. And I see a lot of houses going up in small towns. There's some foundations in around here. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but it seems like people are kind of fleeing the cities, coming to smaller towns like this. So in the future, if we do keep to this track over the next few years, there is a chance that things are going to turn around, and things are going to, there's going to be more people looking for this kind of small town. And then also, I'm sure there's many other small towns across the country with similar things going on. And I'm sure there's many that have, taken option 1 and made it work. I don't really know how to even begin to look at what other towns are doing to make that work, but I'm sure someone somewhere has some good ideas on that as well. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jennifer Buck. I live in Webster. I don't have any children and never did in the Webster school, but I'm very proud that we have one. I am in favor of keeping, and I echo the comments that everyone else has put forth. My major concern is that with the Salisbury thing is the bus ride. There are going to be children on the bus for a long period of time going to and from school, especially if you live in the south end of Webster. I'm not certain where the school is located in Salisbury, but my guess is it's going to be a 40-minute to maybe 45 to 50-minute bus ride that these kids would do one way twice a day.
Thank you. Yes, did you have something?
I was
Yes.
actually just swatting flies, but I always have something to say. I have a few things. One, I think that, like, just from listening, I think everybody here is here because they want to support having one school or one of the two options. So I think we need to think about, so then what? Like, so what are we going to do? Looking around here, I think I'm the only parent. Maybe there might be a couple other parents of a student right now. So that's a little disheartening. Like, where are the people for that? But I think we need to think about what we're going to do. I'm also a teacher in the district. We need to be more accommodating to the idea that we may have to do a combined class. Like, it's a lot of money as a taxpayer, and I am 100% for public schools. Clearly, I'm a teacher, I'm here, but we need to be able to be more willing to look at those kinds of things, that maybe we can have a combined class at K2 or whatever, and that maybe there'll be some benefits of that. I do think that there are classes that are too small. Anecdotally, my niece went to school up in Warren, and there were 5 kids in her class. And it was hard. She struggled, and then she moved to some other schools, to Romney and then to Plymouth, and the schools were bigger. And while there were great advantages of her school for sure, she also really struggled because she was one of 5. Like, how is she supposed to have social relationships with just a few other children? So I do think that there's some real, and like you said, we're talking about small classes being 15, 17, like, our classes are much smaller than that when they're small here. So I think we need to be willing to look at options outside of the box. And I agree, like, bringing kids in from Pennacook. If there are kids who are willing to come out from Pennacook, maybe we can do that. I know we have some, at least one already doing that. So I think we need to look at those kinds of things. Are there other programs that we could then bring out here? Are there other I don't know, but I think we need to start thinking of, like, what can we do then? Because it costs a lot of money to have a teacher and to have multiple teachers and to have all this stuff. So what can we do to make us get our bang for our buck? Because I know at town meetings, everyone's always worried about money. So we need to think about how to keep our tax down. Also, while I'm here, seeing how you're all supporting the small school, Webster PTO, I'm the PTO president, Pampered Chef. If you want to buy from Pampered Chef, also get those pumpkins carved. We're going to set them out over there. So you obviously all support small schools, so feel free to reach out to me, and I can let you know how you can volunteer.
Let's just step in front of the camera. For all the people at home.
Pampered Chef, find us on Facebook, or just contact Heidi Olson from Webster.
Thank you very much. Love the advertising.
That was a nice commercial.
Yeah, well,
I have flyers posted
Yeah,
around too.
yeah,
if you
very
need them.
good. Who else? This lady? Okay. And then we're gonna let everybody else go before we let you go again.
I'm just gonna add to what Heidi said, but that's good.
Okay.
Jessica Scarfone. I live in Webster. I have 2 boys who are not even old enough to be in the elementary school yet. I guess it was interesting to me what some of the people have said in regards to, like, the opportunity, because I'm relatively new to Webster, the opportunity of having the Webster school be an opportunity to meet other parents. Because I can say, having moved here, I've been like, oh, are there other kids here? That would be a surprise. So I guess the way I kind of look at it in regards to that, I think that having the kids stay in Webster is a great opportunity, but I also continue to hear echoed about money and finances, and I feel like if potentially, I mean, I guess I'm new here, so maybe I don't know, but if we make the investment into the schools, that's the way we get more students to come. That's the way students want to go there. That's the way you get families to move someplace, is by them saying, like, wow, that's a really great school district. I want my kid to go there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Did you have something, sir?
Sure. Mark Phillips, Webster. I'm not a parent, not an educator. And this may be more a question for
Two
you all.
questions.
I have learned fairly recently about sort of the community school model, which if we analogized it to our library 50 years ago, when all you did was go in and you took a book out. And now the library is reinvented as a community center. It's offering related but very diverse services for the community. And I've heard tonight and in the small school study constant reference to community partnering. I think one of the options maybe that's, I'm getting into 4 or 5 or whatever, was partnering with the community in some way. And if you think of, if you define educating a child in the 21st century a little more fully, and think of all the social and emotional needs which are being addressed, I could imagine after-school programs, pre-K programs. I could imagine, and by the way, the community schools exist in New England, in Berwick, Maine, Bennington, Vermont. The current administration has proposed $442 billion to expand the community school model, elementary, middle, and high school, for the 2022 budget. So it's not new. It's actually been around for 50 years. It applies in rural areas and in downtown Philadelphia. And downtown Philadelphia, as different as we could be, but they are effectively providing the kids health care, food. They are addressing all of the needs. And today, kids have so many needs beyond mathematics, but beyond math, beyond English, beyond reading. And it may be useful just in thinking about opportunities for growth and an ability to attract kids. I mean, if Webster, or frankly, any of the schools in Merrimack Valley can offer services that really strike a chord with parents and really help the kids in a larger context, learn better, feel better, grow more competently, then that can be a real attractor to grow the school organically rather than just demographically. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the kind of thing we're looking for. We want to hear out-of-the-box thinking. We want to hear what can we do to make it better. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Michelle Bresser-Robley. I'm here from Webster. I don't yet have a child in the school. Hopefully for next year I will. My daughter, 2 years after that, my son. And I come from an educational background. I work in youth development, Forge program through University Extension. And I think, I'm talking from a parent side as well as my professional side tonight, that there's some tremendous opportunity we have here in both of our small schools in Salisbury and Webster, and would love to see both schools maintain their identity as far as the way that they're structured now. And I say that as far as my daughter's excitement coming to, and I hear the sentiment as far as the community identity that happens. I feel that as far as a parent, because I keep hearing this from my other friends that say, you'll get connected in the community once your child hits school, and I think that's true because, like, for the new parent, we've been here for a little while too, but I still think we're going to meet more when we get there. So I think that's very true, and I think that Webster needs that piece, and that there is very much a community identity that happens, and that it's a very integral part of our community there at the school. But also, I had the chance this past year to engage with the school in the 4th and 5th grade, and I was able to go in as far as my work and engage with that class, those 2 classes, and teach a maple sugaring project. So got to do some outdoor classwork, and I taught for them, and it was to engage with those students. And part of what made that possible was the structure that happens in that school. It's a small school. So to teach maple sugaring, it doesn't happen with large classes. It's a small hands-on project. And I think there's opportunity in the structures that happen in schools to engage with that, and we can capitalize on that, and to really allow some really great learning with our students, and to really meet some great learning needs for our students in really special ways and experiential learning that could happen. So I think there's some really strengths that we could really capitalize on from the structures that exist currently if we do some outside the box thinking. If we take that opportunity, the time to step back and look at it and see what we have, and to think about the resources that we have available in our communities, to engage with community partners to do some of that work, to think about what we have available, and some restructuring, and not being opposed to looking at maybe there is some consolidations that do need to happen, and not being afraid of those changes too, and talking to our students that are in the schools as well, and thinking about, because ultimately they're the ones that receive the changes that are being made. So that's what I think. And I will say right now that I am more than happy to be a part of that change process and to
Good,
volunteer
good.
towards any.
Well, I do have a sign-up sheet with
My name on that list.
Yes, Heidi.
Hi. I'm Normandy Blake. I was mother of 5 on the school board for 35 years. I want the schools to stay the way they are because all these people have great ideas. And the people that are new to town, wait. COVID, when that goes away, we're busy. I also write the newspaper. Okay. So, the little, but there's so many things, and this woman was right on. We used to have people come in the schools in a small school, you can do it. They taught all kinds of things. I mean, we have so many talented people. We have people that do conservation, all kinds of stuff. I mean, so many good things, and we've done so many good things. My kids have done it. You can't do it in bigger classes, but I really want to keep the kids in the small towns. And we also have all that land we have. The school's only on 3.9 acres, big deal. The town owns 58 other acres. A ball field, a soccer field, the river, all that kind of stuff, nature stuff, all over the place. And so I am really adamant about that. And when my oldest kid got to school, it was 8 children in the class. When my boys got there were like 32 kids in the class, and they split them up. They all did well, and the teachers, we had a house fire, and this is how teachers know. With the kids, they all prepared the kids to deal with my kids they were young, and the bus driver, and it's something you don't get in a big school. Everybody knows everybody in a small school, and the parents, the kids can come here, use the stage, do whatever they want. We've had dinners downstairs to make money for kids programs, and also that's when we're so lucky to have this place next to the school. Thank you. Sorry, I talked too much.
All right. The lady in the back?
The one who snuck in very quietly.
Oh, yeah.
My name's Tamora McElravy. I just moved to town just down the road. And I am late because I work at the Conval School District, and I have taught at Temple Elementary School, which is a small town in that district. And it's a small school, and I've been there since 1998, and I would not have it any other way. I came to this town because it is a nice small town, and I love the small schools. The people would not close that in a heartbeat. We have fought that several years. It is awesome to have a small school in your town. If you don't have a school in your town dissipates. So, no, we like it, and I am here to say that I am for the small schools in Salisbury and here.
Thank you.
Dave Hemingway, Webster, and also the current chair of the Select Board in Webster. I do have a student that will, in the future, be in the program most likely. And I wanted to reiterate something that everybody's been saying, and that is that community involvement is the key biggest strength of any small school. Community involvement allows for things such as the sugaring projects, the environmental studies, going out behind the school with a class to watch the river being stocked, all of those sorts of things. It also is what gets your parents highly involved, because they're now involved with not just their kid, not just a few of their friends' kids, but with most people. So something such as the Parent-Teacher Association is going to be much more highly important and also much more impassioned with people that come to serve it, whether it's things like the pumpkin carve and other fundraisers, or whether it's trying to help out and guide things in the school. So that is my first point, is that community involvement is super important, and you get that the most when people are staying in a school, in their local area, for the longest period of time. So that is a benefit to a full K through 6 or pre-K through 6 style of education. The second point, since it has been brought up a couple times, and also in the study and by the board about the land, I just want to mention that yes, of course, there are lots of town-owned lands around the school, as people have mentioned, and we would be more than happy to bring something to the voters if the school wanted to have some of that. But I wanted to point out specifically that just this past month, we have also gone in and reaffirmed and updated the MOU. For those that don't understand, that acronym is a Memorandum of Understanding. It is a legal document that says that the school and the town share this land and the way that we use it. We as the town and the school have all signed that. So that is not an immediate threat, even if the study may have identified it as an issue.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tom McWilliams, Webster. My wife and I have lived here for 21 years. Don has been active in the elementary school as an assistant. And my experience when I grew up, being a child of the 60s, when we had kids coming out our ears, was that I went to 5 different elementary schools in 6 years. Now, that gave me an advantage when I got to high school because I knew everybody. But I got to tell you, the bus rides, you really don't want to go there. You don't want to have busing. If you notice what happened in Seattle last week, they had to go virtual because they couldn't get enough bus drivers. And we're going to have that problem. If you're not going to pay teachers, you're going to end up paying bus drivers and paying for more maintenance on the buses. But the children are the ones who are really going to suffer. And then my second point, which is, again, thinking out of the box, is that in my experience of going to 5 different elementary schools for 6 years, I was in a 3rd and 4th combined grade. It was the best. It was sort of like a one-room schoolhouse with 2 classes, and you had your agenda, things that you were learning, and the 4th graders had things that they were learning, but you could hear what was going on. So even though you were supposed to be reading and studying, you're kind of like had one ear open and learning about long division, even though that wasn't for you as a 3rd grader. And so I'm glad that the board is here, because I would like you to be creative in how you deal with small class sizes. If you have, like, say 5 children in 2nd grade and you've got 10 children in 3rd grade, feel free to combine those 2. It won't hurt the kids. In fact, it will help them.
Thank you. Did you?
You want to go first? So Heidi was talking a little bit about students from other towns coming in and adding into the classrooms. So I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but at some point, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we actually allowed that. We allowed Pennacook students to come to Salisbury and Webster, and students from other communities. However, they had to be transported by the parents. And so you had few takers, and those takers that came didn't last the full year. So, if you really think about it, our school buses all start in Pennacook. And it would be should be no problem at all to find a great way to make a route that drives through and picks up anybody from Pennacook that does want to go to a small school in Salisbury and fill in a class of third graders that happen to be 9 students. Same thing with Bosquen. How many people live on that same road that drive all the way up to Salisbury from Bosquen? You can pick those students up and take them to Salisbury Elementary School, and you can make it happen.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Michael Borwick from Webster. I used to be a select person and chair. I've been here a long time, 35 years plus. I had children go to the school. I had grandchildren go to the school. It's a great education. It's a very good education. And the community is unheard of. So new people, once you get in there, everybody, you start being part of the whole town. It's really, really nice. So I support definitely the keeping the schools the way they are. Growth, what I've been seeing this past year has been crazy. I've seen a bunch of New York people coming in, buying houses, paying way more than what they went for before. Down in Winterpocket, I've seen a log house was going for, I don't know, $4 1/4. And I said, that's totally ridiculous. And somebody paid cash for $450, $475. People are moving in from all over the place. In Concord Hospital, Concord doctors. I've been going in there and seeing new doctors. It's been incredible, the type of physicians we're getting now. It's really incredible. They're coming from DC, they're coming from New York. They don't want to live there anymore. They want to live in the small towns, a safe environment for their children to grow up their family. So it's growing right now because of the pandemic and everything that's been happening. So that's one thing. Property values. Property values will stay up and increase with a full elementary school. It's always been heard of. Real estate agents have talked about it. Property values are good with a full elementary school. Again, the community, it's been great. I guess that's about it for now. I just want to let you know things are growing post-pandemic here because of the small schools and people. Oh, there was one person in our informational meeting that stood up and said, I moved here, I'm going to have kids in my school, in the school, and I moved here for the small school, and if you don't have the small school, I might just move away. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I failed to say, and I apologize, to Bruce Johnson, one of the most important things that a child learns to do when they go to elementary school is to read. And we have the premier reading program, I think, in the state of New Hampshire, primarily thanks to Bruce. I mean, Dee's always writing articles about Bruce is doing this, Bruce is doing that. In the summertime, do the kids, go on vacation? No, they've got a list of books that they're reading for incentives. So I think that, we have it all over the other elementary schools, primarily because of our excellent reading program.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for folks or any comments they want to make? No pressure. If you do, I don't want you to think you're not allowed to speak. Yes, go ahead, sir.
I have a question. Has the school board of the district ever done a survey of parents in terms of, within the last 3 to 4 years, in terms of what their needs are, as far as what they want what they would like for their children?
Not specifically, you mean parents in Salisbury and Webster, or parents across, specifically in these towns? Rather than do, I really don't like surveys.
Or a town?
I'll tell you why. Because people think they're a vote, and they're really not. They're a sort of way to, I would much rather have a conversation than do a survey which doesn't really tell me what people are thinking.
How about a series of focus groups? Getting parents to talk, just like we're hearing tonight, that reading program is really important, or experiential learning is really important, or having a sugar house, sap house behind is a great, I mean, those kinds of ideas you can get, and I agree with you, paper surveys are kind of worthless.
Well, what I like in response to what you're saying is this committee that we're gonna form, I hope will even if we can't get a lot of parents to be on the committee, which I hope we can, we can maybe get the committee to reach out and get some more input from parents. I like that. Did you want to answer the question? Because I don't know.
Sure. Well, I would say that there have been surveys that have been out throughout the course of the years, and between PTOs and PTAs and other advisory groups, there is a lot of opportunity for that feedback. But specific to the small schools, beyond the listening session in June, the flow of emails that we received as a result of embarking upon the small school studies once again, there really haven't been specific surveys sent out about the small schools and what aspirations and hopes would be. But we have had a series of listening sessions between June and this one, and the one we have planned for tomorrow evening as well. But another shameless plug for Heidi's group, the PTO and PTA organizations, PTG, whatever the acronym is, lots of opportunity for feedback there. I know that the administration is also intricately involved with those organizations and very receptive to feedback. One of the first things that I did when I came on board here, hard to believe 8 years ago, was I actually worked with a small group of parents. It was a small group of parents that were from various levels. And the whole point of that group was to get feedback. And when I got that feedback, I sent it out to the building admins. We rallied around and talked about that feedback very frequently. For various reasons, that group no longer exists, but that was a very beneficial perspective to have, is to have that group of parents who are willing to provide just kind of boots on the ground feedback as to what's happening, what those aspirations are, what might not be working. And it was really good open dialogue when I was able to have it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Heidi Olson. Childcare. I think that's something that we need to look into. I know Salisbury has a real, or maybe they've solved that, but in the past it's been a real issue, not having childcare in Salisbury. I think they started it up again, and I know that the Y brings kids from Webster to Boston, but I think, that's a real, I don't know what the school, obviously I'm not asking schools to provide childcare, absolutely not, but I'm saying with Boston, we have a, snapping pictures. We have a, I don't know whether it's like a contract or whatever, where the Y program is at Boston. So I think those are the nitty-gritty details that, in order to get new families to be able to stay here. I mean, if you don't have childcare, there's hardly any home childcares left. We have one still on Tyler Road there who's, she's going to be retiring pretty soon.
Are you speaking of after school?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't get home in time to get my daughter. Luckily, I have family, but, I think that's an option. And I think that sometimes families are, and especially during the pandemic, some families are like, well, you know what, we're just going to go to, Shaker Road School, we're going to pay because it comes with child care too. So we need to think about how to retain the students we have. And I guess that's the big thing, how to retain the students we have and how to make sure that these new families that are coming in are able to send their kids here. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with staffing too. I think we've got a lot of great ideas, but if we don't have the staff to support that, this is me putting my teacher hat on. If we don't have the staff to support those, it's great that we have an empty room, but if there's nobody in there to supervise the children, then it doesn't help. So, I mean, obviously you all know that right now it's pretty hard to hire anybody to do anything. So the schools are facing that same issue, and I think we need to think about what we do about staffing and keeping the kids that we have in the schools that we have, or bringing them from, you know, the other schools that are like Pennacook that's getting very full, bring them. But then they might have the whole 40-minute bus ride thing, I guess, if they're coming from Pennacook. But and again, PTO, future
Yes.
Again, Nick Campbell from Webster. Just a couple ideas again, you know, about keeping things the way they are, but also maybe, you know, thinking outside the box is like, you know, maybe on Fridays we have all the kids go to one school to do some kind of programs, or certain days, so that way you get a certain mix of kids. So they're not always every day 5 kids in their class. You know, maybe once or twice a week you can mix things up. Maybe a couple days a week you can join a couple grades together. The teachers could do a developmental day or whatever it is, or some kind of things like that. That would help boost some of the sizes certain days and help give the kids you know, a mix of different people and different ideas. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're actually, yes, sir, ma'am.
I'm sorry. It's fine.
Go ahead.
So, I just wanted to iterate, like, I totally understand what you're saying in regards to surveys, but, one of the nice things about surveys is for me, as like a parent with little kids, it's a huge burden for me to get to these meetings. Like, my kids are supposed to be going to bed right now. And I'm sure my mother-in-law is not putting them to bed, so it's gonna be a disaster when I get home. But like, I don't have, you know, it's a, as I said, a huge burden for me to get here. So like, at least that gives me like the opportunity to speak in, you know, in a way, like if there's like open comment section or something like that. In regards to what he said, of having people who maybe rotate, or the opportunity to have like additional services that go through the schools, I realize that that's a burden of hiring people who will go to multiple different schools, and that's a big sell. But I have to say, where we moved from, one of the most wonderful clinical settings that I did as a nurse practitioner was in the schools. And one of the schools that I went to had a nurse practitioner who rotated between 3 separate schools and saw kids in the schools. They also had a dentist who came into the schools. But obviously it was a lot poorer area. So the issue was that these kids didn't have access to that because the parents didn't have funding. But thinking in regards to that, like, so maybe the kids in Webster, their parents have access to allow, like, you know, the opportunity to take their kids to the dentist, but maybe there are other things that their kids don't have the opportunity to access because the parents don't have time, or don't have, like, you know, something in regards to the opportunity of time rather than the opportunity of financial issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We said that we were going to talk about the one option and then the other option. It's very clear that the option of changing the grade configuration so that one school would be a pre-K or K through 2 and the other be a 3 to 5 is not something that this group is in favor of. I got that message. On the other hand, I still want us to keep thinking about whether there are other variations. I mean, for example, you were talking about, you know, 1 day a week or occasionally mixing it all up and doing things together. I'm still looking for out-of-the-box ideas. I also have this pad of paper which says name, email, all right? I'm gonna pass it around. I want you to sign up to join us in a committee that's going to sort of keep digging into these kinds of ideas. We've heard some wonderful ideas tonight, and I want to follow up on those with a group that's going to meet several times to try to make some recommendations about what we can do that will be better, and hopefully some suggestions that might be useful for other schools in the district. It's not only for small schools. Yes, sir.
If you sign up, will you have Zoom meetings? I travel a lot.
I don't know why we couldn't.
Yeah, I would just say that it depends on what the nature of the board involvement is. If there's a forum of the board, there has to be a forum of the board physically present. But if it's a small task force,
It's going to be a small task force. We are purposely not going to be a forum of the board so that we can be more flexible about when we meet. But I hadn't thought of it in terms of Zoom meetings, but there's no reason why it couldn't be. We'll figure that out.
I split my time between two
Got it.
places, so.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense, and that might make it more possible for folks
Yes.
like the lady back here to do it without having to have the children not get put to bed on time.
Sure.
Got it. Good point, thank you, that's a great one. Yes.
Yeah, just a thought occurred to me while we've been talking about this. My stepson is living in Japan and teaching English to Japanese students, and he doesn't work in one school all the time. He rotates from school to school to school and does various things in various schools, where cost is an issue that a lot of people have brought up, and there are talented people out there. Perhaps the district could hire a few people who moved from school to school to school and brought in available enrichment opportunities on particular days, whether it's a Friday thing or something else, it's a once-a-week thing, which would give opportunities for teachers to collaborate, which we all always struggle to be able to find time for. So that might bring in outside perspectives at low cost.
Great, thank you. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Celia. At risk of saying something that's already been said, I apologize for being late. I came straight from a meeting. You know, to Mike's point about Zoom, I think that's another possibility that the district has to embrace. I mean, with the pandemic, we've learned to use tools that we didn't even imagine we would be utilizing a year ago, 2 years ago. And so if you could have teacher planning time coordinated between schools so that a teacher is not working in a silo, but in fact can participate electronically with a meeting without hopping in the car and driving somewhere. You know, those are all the possibilities that are now in our lap, and we know that they work, right? So exploring ways to coordinate between the two schools, I think, would be really beneficial. Another thing I'll say is that, you know, I know this was looked at as a small school study, and I think that was short-sighted because I think it's really a district-wide study. You know, I passed the bus on Cornhill Road. There are kids who are closer to Webster Elementary School than Boscawen Elementary, and if given the choice, is that something that they would, you know, choose to participate in? And can we examine sort of you know, again, we're not going to require that you now go to school out of town, but if that's a possibility and it's a class size situation that's desirable, then why not offer that and explore that? Because there are certainly possibilities around the smaller towns. You know, and Lori in the past has made it clear that she was frustrated when children from the smaller towns were then choosing, because of daycare and so forth, to go to school in Boscawen. And I've said all along, I thought that was wrong. I think when you choose to live in a small community, you get all the benefits of it, and there are some things that go along with that. But we have to work together as a community to solve those problems, and just going to one of the other schools isn't necessarily the right solution. So again, embracing it as a district-wide examination, and how do we go kind of outside the box and think and come up with some really good solutions. One other comment I'd like to make is that in reading the report pretty carefully, I was struck by the maintenance issues that you have at the school across the street, or that we have at the school across the street. The HVAC system was called out as being challenged. You know, we certainly have witnessed COVID numbers at Webster Elementary that are not aligned with the other schools, and so I really want us to come up with a long-term comprehensive plan on how we fix that school, you know, and make sure that we get it to where it needs to be. We've put a lot of money, millions of dollars, into the high school and the middle school, but the small schools, I think, are suffering a little bit, and I just think we ought to look at that and come up with a plan on what we're going to do to address those. And the other piece is, you know, again, from a community, the undersized gymnasium that we have there, for example, you know, we could do so much more as a community if we had equality in gymnasium space to the larger schools, for example. And I think examining all of that and finding a solution to it is really important, and it's important for the children, honestly, going forward, and the community schools going forward. So I just wanted to offer that and say I hope as we're having this dialogue and conversation that we keep looking at all those possibilities.
That's the plan.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I learned to play the alto saxophone when I was in 4th grade. And the way I learned to play it is that the high school had a band director and assistant band director. The assistant band director would go around to all the elementary schools and recruit students who wanted to learn an instrument. And I was one of them. I got really good at it. In fact, in high school, I was elected to go to the district band and then to the regional band. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I would never have played football in high school, because as soon as you start playing football, then you can't be in the band, right? And if I had not played football, I would have been in a band through my senior year, and I went to Penn State, and I would have been in the blue band in Penn State. What an honor that would have been. But you know, you look back on your career and you say, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But I really think that a music program is extremely important, especially if it's coordinated with the local high school. And so if there's any way that we can upgrade the musical skills of our students by giving them opportunities, I'd be very much in favor of that.
Thank you.
Nobody's going to clarify that at Merrimack Valley, the high school football team plays in the band at halftime too? I mean, the football players run over and play in the band, so just to be clear, it does happen.
It doesn't happen in Penn State.
It doesn't.
He's got later with that too.
Back there and then Bruce. Yeah.
I just want to say that to this gentleman's point of the traveling for music, my dad was a lifelong music teacher, and he did that at several of the districts around Massachusetts, where he would go to each and every one of the schools from the high school and then go back and teach stuff at the high school or at the junior high. And that's how you brought the talent out and how you got people involved and saying, hey, this is an interesting thing. I've also seen that with my growing up in different school systems where it was art teachers that were going around. So we had, for example, a fine arts teacher that was really good at drawing and painting that normally was in one school but traveled through the others. We also had an industrial arts teacher that was really good at things like printing and printing presses, and granted I'm dating myself a little here, but the different kinds of technologies, whether it's arts, fine arts, music arts, all of your quote extracurricular activities, those are really important, both for the communities.
Just to be clear, we do
and the school.
have traveling music and art teachers that
Yes.
come to the elementary schools.
Thank you.
I understand that maybe there could be more, but in fact, that is happening.
Yes, and I'm pointing out that as you have smaller schools and the ability to do this, instead of having to put a teacher just in one location, that's a really good thing and a strength. And even if it's two similar types of art teachers, if they're both rotating through and doing different things, that's an even better situation.
Bruce?
Thank you, Celia. I don't have to go through all my negatives now.
No, I don't want to
Okay.
hear your negatives.
But, you know, I
No,
think,
because really this needs to be positive. Let's do what we can do.
but I think that, you know, one of the reasons a lot of people are rallying in this town all summer because of the fear of closing the school was because it is a really good school. And we recognize it as a good school with good test scores and with low cost for students. It's a good combination. It works well. And that's why people are speaking up. I do appreciate the fact that you want to continue to study the schools and make the schools better. But we do need to recognize we have a really good school over there with a top-notch administrator who's here tonight and a lot of really good, excellent teachers that are over there. We have a lot of really good things going on at that school.
Absolutely, no
And
question.
when you take a look at the Dr. Ladd's study, you know, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but Dr. Ladd studied, and look at all the potential problems that we're having with the school. I mean, one of the things that is listed is, you know, the water. Well, the water's not an issue, we resolved that issue. You can pretty much go down all those lists of things that are listed there as problems and recognize that there are really good solutions to them and they're within our grasp. So keeping the school a K-5 viable school is very doable, very workable, and we can continue to have a really good school, and I thank you for the work you're doing.
I don't want to cut anybody off, so if there's anybody else who has anything they want to say, please do. I also want to say to you that if you have any further questions or come up with what you're sure is the most brilliant idea so far, please email me. My email is fslongnecker, Longnecker is just like it sounds, at mbsdpride.org. And if you can't figure it out or remember, call the school, they know how to find me, okay? Seriously, I want to hear from you. Did we get some people signed up?
Yes.
I was going to say, all of our email addresses are on the MD as website, so you can
Good
find
point.
all of us there.
Yeah, yeah. And, oh, good. Andrew couldn't be here tonight, but he is very much involved and interested in continuing and hopefully being part of the committee. And we're going to do this again tomorrow night at Salisbury Elementary at 6:30. And we're hoping to see as many people there as we see here tonight. And tell your friends, you can come again if you want to, but whatever. Does anybody have anything else they need to say? Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. There have been some great ideas put forth tonight, and we look forward to going forward with this committee and coming up with some really creative things to make what are already great schools even better.
And
Thank
Celia,
you.
thank you back from Webster for listening and all coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got you out the door.